It's Sunday night. It is a little bit after 9 o'clock. So that means it's time for the Jackson Post cast behind the paywall, where we look at the print edition, last week's print edition, and we just walk you through the local news of Jackson, Tennessee with Jackson Post editor Brandon Shields. Brandon, how are you doing on a Sunday night at 9:15? Did you survive the weekend?
Uh, my wife had a very long list of things to do as far as yard work goes, and I knew it was going to be a long weekend when Friday afternoon she's like, "It's supposed to rain tomorrow. You should probably go ahead and cut grass this afternoon,"
Planning ahead.
which
I
I
like
did.
it.
Which I did. But you know what? Our yard is in much better shape now compared to where it was this time about 80 hours ago. So there we go.
I love yard
I'm
work.
accomplished.
We planted flowers today, but contrary to popular belief, things are still expensive, Brandon. Like they're the same as they were, a year ago.
I
Maybe
thought they all
worse.
got cheaper on January 20th.
I did too. I did too. But eggs are still expensive. Flowers are expensive. So for the first time, I bought seeds to grow this year instead of
Yeah.
just the flowers that were already ready to go blooming. I could transform my porch in a matter of a few hours, except now I got to wait 2 months because all the flowers were so expensive. So I bought seeds and I seeded all like so many like pots and troughs and everything around my porch. And now I just got to wait and see if it
Ah,
takes. I don't know. I love it. I like yard work though. But let's get into it. And I want to start off with somebody that we talked a little bit about yesterday, or not yesterday, last week. And it's Kim Tedford,
right.
who announced her retirement at the previous county commission meeting. And you have a real nice piece in last week's post of her looking back on her public health career. And we kind of talked about all the challenges that she faced with COVID and all that. We don't have to go through
Yeah.
all that again. But just as someone who has covered her a lot, obviously with COVID and because of her position within in Jackson, you've probably formed a I don't know if friendship's the right word, but obviously a closeness with her over the years. So do you have anything to reflect back on with how your interactions with Kim Tedford over the last several years?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I didn't. I mean, by the time that we'd gotten through, into 2022, you know, I felt we had definitely developed a friendly uh, camaraderie. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
right word? Um, between each other. When I had announced that I was leaving the Sun, she um, she made it sound like she was going to miss me more than I expected most people to. And then when a few months later, when uh, I had announced that I was coming back to Jackson and starting a new paper, she was one of the first ones that said, "Yes, please bring me one to my house. Tell me how to subscribe. I'm signing up." So yeah, so I guess I would call that um, friends. Definitely a trust there. And in fact, I told her and anyone watching this, particularly maybe some of my more right leaning friends, may disagree with what I'm about to say, and that's fine. And some of the left leaning friends may disagree with what I'm about to say. With they're just going to disagree with different parts. And I told her this the other night when she thanked me for the story. But about a month or a couple of months in, when we started hearing, okay, can we really trust what we're getting from the World Health Organization, the CDC, and Dr. Fauci, and all that stuff? I just decided at that point, for my own purpose, for the purpose of me and my family, plus just for the fact of what I'm going to be putting out each day from these COVID Zoom meetings, that no matter what goes on above her head, I'm going to trust what she says because she's got no reason to buy into any kind of uh, any of the conspiracy theories that y'all want to put out there because her staff's having to work long hours at that point. Uh, I mean, Wayne Arnold is one of her main people, and I remember, excuse me, uh, I think we were celebrating one of my kids' birthdays at Snappy Tomato one Saturday night in March of 21, and Wayne's there with his wife and a couple of his grandkids. I'm like, oh, I thought y'all were working this whole time. He's like, oh, yeah, we are. I'm just here on my lunch or evening dinner break. I'm about to go back and continue doing the work. Kim did not want her people working that hard. So she was not bought into whatever conspiracy theory you want to believe about COVID at the international, national, or even state level. Um, so, but, um, so yeah, she, she was kind of, somebody, gave me the quote this week. We were kind of building the plane as we were flying it.
Mhm.
And that was definitely something public health was doing during COVID. But she eventually landed the plane for us here locally.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens when these, especially when like national and world organizations are sort of the mouthpieces for this thing, and then this information gets disseminated down to local health departments, and they're in the town with the people. And when anyone who believes in conspiracy theories or anything like that wants to lob grenades at national organizations or World Health organizations, that's easy because you don't see those people every day. But then when it makes its way down to actual community members who are just simply trying to go by the science, and
Hmm.
like you said, you're trying to, I don't know what you say, build the plane while you're flying it, land the plane
Yeah.
while you're something like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a whole conversation about COVID and rehash that. Obviously, we can Monday morning quarterback it to death because we're 5 years
Right.
removed, and there's a lot of things that no, we wouldn't do again. But in that moment, based on the information everybody had, like I don't know. I mean, I get like people were trying to do the very best they could, I believe, to save people's lives or to
Yeah.
prevent people from being sick. And you know, obviously we've learned things from that maybe we shouldn't do moving forward, and maybe we should do moving forward. But man,
Hmm.
I do not envy her job, and she seemed to have handled it with like a ton of grace and a lot of class and a lot of professionalism. So we need more public servants like that.
Yeah. I mean, if I was her, and I'm not saying I do or I don't. Let's just say if I did carry a gun with me and wanted to use it, if I were her, I would have been tempted to use it a lot during those times. So just
Yeah,
from some of the grief she got from a lot of people, and
I
still
cannot.
getting it from like two people.
Uh, if we're 5 years removed and they're still not getting it, then they're not going to. She can
Yeah.
They can lose her number, as the kids say. Let me ask you this real quick though, because I don't want to I don't want to veer off too much. When you are tasked with interviewing people in positions like Kim Tedford was in, mayors, superintendents, right? Like people who the media is there to hold them accountable, right? Or to the public because they're using taxpayer money. Um, when you like get along with somebody well, is it tough for you to not do your job, but ask harder questions? I mean, I feel like human nature would just that's kind of how that would go, or not really, or does it just depend on the situation?
It, it depends on the person and it depends on the situation. I mean,
Yeah,
because just some people don't like to be second guessed or questioned. I mean
right.
that there's just some people that have that um, personality. But there came a time where she and I were having a conversation, um, and I don't even remember what I was interviewing her about, but it wasn't on the Zoom. It was just me and her talking on the phone. And I said, and it wasn't long after the vaccine was approved, and there was some stuff that happened locally, and the reporting of that stuff that happened locally got me and the people who worked for me essentially put in the doghouse by everyone that was on that COVID task force. For,
Mm.
I mean, there were people who went a full year without speaking to me, all 2021 without speaking to me, because of some stuff that happened. And uh, uh, there was there was a time where I'm doing this interview with her, and it kind of got awkward for a second. And I said, "Look, can we pause for a second?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "What is you didn't have to agree to do this interview with me. Why did you agree to do this interview with me?" She said, because this information needs to get out. I said, exactly. And that's what I want to do too. So if I'm second guessing you, if I'm questioning you, it's not necessarily that maybe I necessarily believe the sentiment behind the question, but but if the question is worth asking for the knowledge of the people who are worried about whatever,
Mhm.
then I'm going to go ahead and ask it. And even if I do believe it, I'm not going to, I'm probably not going to openly criticize you about it. If I am, you're going to know before I do it because I'll give you a heads up. And so after that, we kind of proceeded with a gentleman's understanding.
And I think I mean that's what media has to do though too. If there is a vocal enough population on one side of an issue, and they are making enough noise, then I do think that like I feel like that's a
Hmm.
fair thing to do. I mean, if it's
Yeah,
out there enough, if it's not some fringe, you know what I mean. But I mean,
there are some. I mean, um, just go ahead and tease the next week. Um, we've got a local. He's not a employee of the government, but we've got a local, technically elected official by one party, who
it's
has
like
made some public statements.
Jackson's version of Elon Musk. Like who is this? This is like an appointed person that wasn't elected, but he's like making like
Well, I mean, no need to keep it under a veil. I mean, Brad Greer and I are going to have a conversation on Monday morning about the Facebook post that he put up. What, last week, or was it
He's like,
whatever?
let's hold on to that until
Yeah,
next week.
but
Okay.
you know, if I didn't think that that was worth discussing, because there are a lot of people who question. I mean, a couple of months ago, I put out a story with JPD stats from last year, the last 3 years about crime.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had one woman who's a friend on Facebook. She messaged me. She said, your stats are wrong. I said, okay, well then give me the real stats. Well, I don't have them.
Mm,
Okay, well then how do you know they're wrong? Well, somebody told me. Who told you? I'm not telling you.
mm,
Okay, well then how do you know the stats are wrong? Well, I trust the person that told me.
mm. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I trust my 2-year-old son, but that doesn't mean that if he tells me that the stats are wrong, that I'm going to necessarily believe that. Also, I kind of think I know who the source of that was, and that person blocked me on Facebook because he doesn't like being second guessed, but fortunately, he didn't win an election a few years ago. So,
Whoa! Boom! Hey, don't you love it when people question your stats? Sometimes in an article, even, but then
right?
they don't provide their own
No,
afterwards.
they don't, or
No,
they
my
don't
gosh.
provide any reasoning behind
Mm,
the question. Just I don't think they're accurate.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Too.
to get back to the original point, I have gone on about 7 rabbit trails there. You know, I have broached the question with the mayor's office. Hey, if I do this story, or we all have anything to add to it besides what y'all have put on social media in the past week, and it doesn't sound like they're going to add anything to it. Which
I'm kind of
in
surprised
my
they even addressed it to begin with. But we can, but we'll, yeah, that can be more of a
yeah, well, that'll
conversation.
be the discussion next week, I'm sure.
That's just I don't know. And I know I said I wouldn't opine on this. And I'm so glad I'm not on Facebook regularly at all anymore because I didn't know anything about this until people were
Yeah,
sending me the
right.
screenshots. But I'm like, wow, that's so interesting that the police department and uh, the mayors would even like respond to just a citizen kind of like smack talking on. I don't know. It seems to me like it would give that person more legitimacy than they deserve at that point, right? Like if you're just gonna feel just okay, whatever, like let it die and move on. But
Well, next week I tell you what I will, because I'm essentially giving Brad some legitimacy by doing this interview and writing the story,
yeah,
and I mean I, I'll delve into it more next week,
okay,
but he's the chairman of the local Republican Party.
Hmm.
He's a prominent realtor in downtown Jackson. Former president of Atlanta. So he's you
I
know
don't I don't I don't
um,
call Atlanta in my house on 308
right.
Division. We call it Midtown here.
Well, there's still Lambeth Area Neighborhood Association, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
Not my president. Not my neighborhood association.
So I mean, he's got some legitimate concern, or
Eh, eh, eh.
he's
I
got
tell
some
you what.
legitimacy.
Hey,
He's got legitimacy.
next time I take a nap on the bench at Campbell Lake, I'm gonna keep my antenna up for somebody approaching or filming me. All right, next headline. Next headline. Brandon, we got to
Yes,
work on
sir.
this because
Oh
look,
no.
I know. President Trump has done away with a lot of DEI stuff.
Oh
However,
no.
white scholarship winner wants to improve criminal justice system. Brandon, why does her race matter? Got you. Just kidding.
Oh my
That is not
goodness.
her race. That is the name
Wow.
of the scholarship. It
Yes, it is
is
the name of the
the
scholarship.
That is the name of the scholarship. It is named after. Do you know the name of the person? Don't say Miss White.
Yeah, Sue Shelton White.
Sue Shelton White. Okay. So
Yeah.
this was given by the Mad Women, correct?
Uh huh.
The
Madison
Madison
area Democratic women.
area Democratic women who, and I'm going to sort of go off on this tangent here. Um,
Yeah.
they, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong because I think you probably have more friends on some of the writer leaning. What's the word we're looking for? Para
Spectrum.
political organizations, uh,
Right.
than I do.
You're my
I will
in with these people.
I will say this: Mad Women, they do more for members in the community than any other para-political or political organization that I've seen around here. Now, again, I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but they actually do really good work that helps actual like real people in our community.
They're
Period.
helping homeless women on the streets in the winter. I
Yep.
mean, I mean, how can you not support or at least be a big fan of that, even
Yeah.
if you disagree with them politically?
And I think that's like, and look, I'm sure that there are people on the right who are doing really good things as well, and they just may do it separately, like outside of their parapolitical organizations. And so I think
Right.
that obviously needs to be talked about more, like from both sides, because I do think, like we talked about before we started recording, at the Tennessee state legislature, there's probably most of the legislation that gets passed through, for the most part, is probably unanimous or close to it. It just slides right
Hmm.
through. The stuff that gets the attention is the stuff that's so divisive and probably done honestly for a lot of political theater. And I think real life's the same way. I think the majority of us all want the same things. We just have maybe not very different ways of going about them, but that's
Yeah.
where we seem to get hung up all the time.
Well, even
Um,
if you look at local government, I mean, my county commission story from a couple of weeks ago, it was they met for an hour, they did a few things. Oh, and I'm also going to write a column about something that had nothing to do with anything that happened in the meeting, but it's what everybody came away from talking about because everybody's just like, seriously? So when Aaron Ellison threatened the job security of the Parks and Rec director for the county.
oh, county commissions always
So, I
got
mean, that's,
some drama.
yeah, some unnecessary drama. Go ahead. Sorry.
Let's talk a little bit about the scholarship recipient. Is there? I mean, I know you wrote the article. Obviously, I don't know how quickly things just leave your brain after you write something. But anything stood out from that story and what she's gonna like, how she's gonna use that money, what her future plans are, anything like that?
Yeah, just first off, just hearing her tell her story, which, by the way, is something that I didn't even mention in the story that's going to be a story either this week or next week was Keep My Hood Goods executive director, Juanita Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I get her and Juanita Shaw mixed up sometimes. Juanita Jones um, was like the speaker. She spoke before the award was or the scholarship was awarded, and she talked about some stuff that I didn't know about her and her history. So I'm probably going to try to work that into a separate story this week. Um, but talking about Miss Boyd, who won the scholarship. She's originally from Detroit. She dropped out of high school when she was a senior, um, because she said all I cared about was the street life. So I wanted to go live on the streets. Um, and so she lived that street life for a while. And then she got tired of it. I think the catalyst that got her tired of it was when she said she got saved and started a relationship with Jesus and started following Him. She said soon after that, she said, I wasn't even regularly in church yet, but I'm already going to prisons and preaching to the people in prison because that's what the Bible says to do. And not a lot of people obeying uh, that mandate in Scripture. Um, and she had a couple of kids. Barack Obama gets elected president. She starts paying attention to national politics at that time. Um, and she sees how President Obama and his wife Michelle were treated, particularly by Republicans and the extreme right. And she just kind of seen how the national politics and how dirty they can be. And she was inspired by Michelle Obama. And she said, if Michelle Obama at age 45 can decide I'm going to go back to law school so that maybe somewhere I can be appointed to a judge position, she said, I want to do that same thing. So
Wow.
she has graduated from Jackson State. In fact, her mentor, Jackson State, and I apologize, his name has escaped me, but he was there. Um, he was there. She's already enrolled in school at Austin P. And then once she gets done at Austin P, she's going to go to law school somewhere. She hadn't decided that yet. And she said, I'm hoping before I'm done, I'm on the United States Supreme Court.
Wow. It sounds like I'm also hoping that she is on the United States Supreme Court before she is done. Well, we like to refer to the Obama years in Midtown, Jackson. Those were the good old days, at least in my house. That's what me and the cats refer to them as. The good. But look, I'll be honest. Like I know I don't want to opine too much, but if you can't find inspiration in Michelle Obama, I don't know who you can find inspiration. I'm being dead serious. Like she is a very inspirational person. A lot of good work out of that position.
I'm not going to disagree with you there.
Yeah, she's great.
Hey, you know what? If considering what the Democrat Party has given us since 2016, I'd give Obama a look if he could run for president again.
Whew,
Ooh, maybe
boy,
it'll be him versus Trump in 28.
you and me both. That's right. Hey, third term wide open. Come on, everybody. Come on. Who's left? Who's left? Bill Clinton.
George W.
Honest, I'd take George W. in a heartbeat right now. Right. Not even. I wouldn't even hesitate. I wouldn't even hesitate. All right. I love this story. Even though the wording of the headline was a bit jumbled.
That was my favorite story from last week.
It's a good story. I think in the cliche is, well, in America everybody loves a good comeback story and blah, but we do, and the reason that we love them is because they just don't happen a lot. They get a lot of attention because they deserve a lot of attention, but this is not the norm. And so any kind of support and assistance that someone like Tiffany Boyd can get, like, hell yeah, let's give her as much support and assistance as we can. So hats off to that women. Keep doing good work. That's great stuff. Okay, this is where we're going to kind of get into the weeds and really take it back even to like consolidation. There is an article kind of tucked in on the front page of last week's paper on the side that says explaining how Jackson, the city of Jackson, will give JMCSS $120 million in 20 years. Now, just to give some context around this, we mentioned this last week. County Commission funds the school system.
Right?
Yes. Okay. City of Jackson, they had, and I'll let you cover all of this in a second. They had an agreement to support the county with the funding based on, was it a liquor tax, some sort of tax? Was it liquor tax?
Local option sales tax.
Okay. Local option sales tax, some type of tax. And in 2017, they were like, yeah, man, we're tired of paying this.
Hmm.
We don't feel like we're increasing our taxes, county, you're not doing this, so therefore you're putting not as much in the school system as you technically could have been. So we're essentially subsidizing what you're supposed to be paying for, so we're not going to pay anything else. And they decided it at a specific city council meeting effective immediately, which I think before you get into all this, I wrote a piece about this in 2017, and I'll just preface it before I turn it over to you. I
Yeah.
called at that time Scott Conger, who was on the city council, and Jay
Right.
Bush, who was on county commission, and
Correct.
just got their both of their sides because I was writing a piece for our Jackson Home about it. And I was like, this doesn't like, why did the city just pull it? Talked to Conger, everything he said, I completely understood. I was like, I get it. All right, okay. Talked to Jay Bush, everything he said, completely understood it. I get that perspective. I left both those phone calls thinking, wow, like I completely understand where both sides are coming from. That being said, if I remember this correctly, there's I think the main crux of my article was there's got to be better communication on both sides. Like you can't just pull out of a deal like effective immediately when a certain budget depends on the expectation of that money. That's
Right.
sort of where I ended up landing on it, but I understood both sides of it completely. So I will let you give us the full backstory and how we've kind of come full circle with Jackson, the city of Jackson, paying money back into the school system.
Yeah. I mean, well, they've never actually stopped. I mean, they did there for a few weeks or whatever.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, uh, as I had to do a lot of fact checking for this story because for whatever reason, like every time I write about this, I'm finding out new uh, parts to this story from 2017 that because this was the last big thing that happened before I left sports. And because it was going on about this time 8 years ago, and um, so just to go back to the beginning, and one thing that I actually got wrong in the story this week was the city did not agree to give 12 million in at the time of consolidation. They agreed to give whatever the percentage was
Yes.
of the local option sales tax. Just by the time they got to 2017, it had gotten up to 12 million. So, so that error is on me. Uh, I think in the beginning it was like 3 million, and then it just gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger
That
until
was
it
okay
grew to what?
because it was based on a percentage. That I'd
Yeah,
forgotten about that, and so that was why I did completely understand their part. Where when we signed this deal, that 3 million was managed or whatever. Now this is all of a sudden ballooned up to this amount. Okay, keep going.
yeah. All right. Now I'm still in sports coverage at this time, but I'm going to take you back to May of 2017, the night before Memorial Day. The reason why I remember that so well is because spring fling always happens the week before Memorial Day,
Mm-hmm.
and more times than not, somebody from JNCSS would go to Murfreesboro in track and field and win the state championship. I think in 2017 it was a hurdler from Southside, and because I want to say it was Miss Cassandra Sane, who used to be the athletic director / assistant principal there. She's in Fayette County now. Uh, I want to say it was one of her daughters. I could correct me if forgive me if I'm wrong on that one. But anyways, she won the state championship where she finished high or whatever. She may not have won state, but she finished high. Well, she did all of her training. She didn't do like Jabari Greer and take a bunch of hurdles out to um, a church parking lot and run in that church parking lot. She just kind of measured, okay, how high is the hurdles? And she marked that spot on the hallways of Southside High School and ran down the hallways of Southside High School trying to jump over that spot at all those
Wow.
points where it would be in a hurdle race. So, so that happens. And then I write the column that I wrote nearly every year at the end of spring fling. Jackson needs its own track and field complex because you're usually having one individual, if not a relay team, winning a state championship. Because JCM had that run about a decade ago where they had like 4 straight years of the state championship. Nowhere to train. A couple years ago, Madison had a pole vaulter um, win a state championship. There's no pole vaulting facilities anywhere in rural West Tennessee. So just think about what they could do if they did have these facilities. Hopefully that's going to get fixed within a year. Knock on wood. With the stadium and track and field facilities at JCM is being built. So, anyways, I put that column out. That Sunday night, I get a call from Jackson City Councilman Johnny Dodd because he thinks that my column was me taking the county side in that disagreement. And I said, sir, with all due respect, I'm just running around chasing athletes and watching softball games. I'm not paying attention to what y'all are doing. Like, the Jackson Sun don't pay me to pay attention. Now, by the end of the summer, they would be.
Right.
But at that point, they didn't. But he said, I remember the point was, well, I just want somebody at that paper to understand we've been giving them $12 million a year for the last few years, and they're still over here claiming they don't have any money or have enough money to fund all the stuff they need to fund. So if they don't know how to use the money properly, we're tired of giving it to them because we need to use it over here. Okay, that makes sense. So that's all I know about, the early part. Go ahead.
At that point, when he called you, I guess the vote because for whatever reason, I'm thinking about. I wrote the article in the summer. So do you remember when the vote was taken or when they decided that? Was it May? Was it had it just happened?
Maybe it was May, or maybe they were going to vote at the June meeting, and word
Okay,
had
and he
gotten
just
out.
thought
Hey,
you
this
got
is
wind of it. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I'm not. Yeah, I'm telling you, I was not paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
uh, and even before I wrote this, I had to check my facts with Conger. Um, I was checking my facts with AJ Massey and Mike Taylor or not Mike. I guess Mayor Massey was the main one that I
He
checked
was
my
school.
facts with.
He was school board
Hmm.
then too, wasn't he? Massey.
Right, but the reason why I
Yeah.
was checking facts with him was based on the deal that this extension is a part of with
Yeah.
Pope, that he's been in on all those talks for. He wasn't even on school board yet. He got elected to school board in 18. So this
Right.
is still like a year and a half before he's on school
Okay.
board. So the and I checked my facts with Gary Deaton, who was the county commission chair 8 years ago, and still, when he refers to that whole situation, he says the city stole $12 million from us, and now it's $6 million because the end agreement was, all right, city's going to give $6 million to the schools or to the county to give to the schools. And then when the local option sales tax reaches 12 million, from 12 to 13 million, that's going to be split between the county and the city, but you both got to give your allotment of whatever that is to the Education Foundation Board.
That's right.
And, and then once you get to 13, which they thought it never would, then it'll go back to being split between the city and county again. Just to go into, I guess, their general fund.
Do you know where it is now? Is it at 13?
Oh, it's going above 13 routinely for the last,
Okay.
probably since 21. The two main things that have affected that are, one, inflation,
Of course.
and two, in the middle of COVID, and everybody's doing all their shopping online and having everything delivered, and the
Mm-hmm.
state changed how they taxed um, the online sales. It
Mm-hmm.
now goes to the county in which it was ordered.
Right.
Um, so that was a they didn't expect that to be as big of a bump as it was,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when there's a pandemic and everybody's told to stay home for a few months.
That's when everybody did their shopping on their phones. And they got their COVID
Yep.
money. And there you go. That's what
And even
happens.
now, people are now in the habit. I mean, my wife, for all of the um, yard work we did this weekend, she spent very little time, and I spent no time at the places where you would go to do yard work to get the stuff. So she ordered it all online and had it delivered.
Had it delivered. There you go. See? It's man, it is an easy trap to fall into, but I'm gonna tell you something. I spend more money because of that because it's so easy to buy stuff on my phone, and it's
Right?
I gotta watch it, and also I do feel like that's probably why a lot of local businesses just struggle. Now, I mean, it's just
Hmm.
hard to like. It's convenient. It honestly, it's probably cheaper to get something off Amazon. But man, it's like working. It's like anything that you want to do to better yourself. It's just harder. It's just a
Yeah.
little bit harder to do those things that make things better than it is just to do
Hmm.
the easy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And if I can get groceries without having to put pants on,
hey,
I'm going to do it.
that's why I do the Kroger pickup. I don't have to get out of my car.
Yep.
I'm just kidding.
There
I
you
work
go.
to the Kroger pickup. Now, real quick, back to this. So so the city. How long did they stop paying their whatever they were required to pay? You said a few months. Is that what it ended up being?
I don't even think it was a few months because it sounded like, I mean, there was a lawsuit from the county,
Yeah, I remember that.
and Jimmy Butler was chancellor at the time. I don't know if it went to him, like before it went officially to trial, they came up with an agreement.
Yeah,
Education Foundation was part of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I want to say Jimmy was a part of it, but, excuse me, Judge Butler, Chancellor Butler was a part of it. Um, but he may not have been the one who kind of presided over it.
Okay.
Um, But yeah, I mean that's where the Education Foundation was born, um, and the $6 million for 10 years, because we've all been wondering, all right, when 2027 gets here, and that is an election year in city municipal government, how is that going to be handled? Um, well, now we have those answers.
There you go. So just to put a bow on this, what is the city's role in the Pope situation? Right? Like, is this all tied back into Pope being the main focus, or
Yeah, yeah.
okay?
All right, so I mean, so essentially there was a deal made struck between JMCS, the school board, county commission, city council, or mayor Conger. All three got some stuff they wanted. All three had to give up some stuff or uh, uh, swallow some bitter pills, to use Gary Deaton's metaphor from a couple of weeks ago to county commission. Um, the county um, is going to pay for whatever off-site improvements are needed past phase one. JMCSS is paying for phase one. Hopefully that work is about to be started. Phase one is the turn lane in front of the school. Hopefully that's about to get started, hopefully done before August 1st. I think school starts on August 1st. Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't. I don't think it's August 1st. I want to say that's probably in service. If we're following the same calendar we followed,
Yeah.
and then kids would come whatever like the second full week of August is usually the way that's been going.
Okay. Um, so either way, they're trying to get it done before first day. Then once school starts, there's going to be a new actual traffic study done. The traffic study that was done a couple of years ago was just, I think Orthcut Winslow just kind of said, "Oh, well, nationally, this is what happens generally in roads like this, in areas like this, in cities of this size like this, when there's a school put here." But, Mayor Massey pointed out one flaw in that, one pretty big flaw was a bunch of cars were getting counted twice because they had the cars going to New Pope, but they still had 400 students or 600 students, whatever it is, still going to the old Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all those students are moving down Ashport Road. So they had to fix that, and there were a couple other things they wanted to fix. So they're going to get through a whole semester, I think. They'll get through December, see what the traffic patterns look like, see what the traffic studies look like, and then whatever that traffic study says, the county has said, yes, we will do whatever that says, and we will pay for
In the end, I know everybody had to swallow some bitter pills, or
it.
whatever
Right?
that turn of phrase was. But can you remember? I remember I wrote a column when the Pope thing was finally announced, or like this was 2018. You were Jackson's son. I just started. Maybe it was 2020. I don't know. But the school board, the county commission, and the city all agreed on something. It was a big deal because they all came to an agreement, and everybody was going to be in some way
If
financially
it was
supported.
18, we're talking JCM and Madison.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it was JC and
Yeah,
Madison. Yeah, so maybe it was that. But either way, I remember like this is such a big deal because it always felt like there was this tension between the school system and county commission, which we did see last summer or 2 summers ago, or the city and
right.
the county, which is all the lawsuit. Like there's always this like pushing and pulling. But even in the end, like it's a good deal that everybody's working together to like get something done, even though the city isn't. Well, I guess they are legally required to pay that whatever percentage is, but they don't have to have. They don't have to have this much skin in the game, do they? Like legally speaking?
No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
according to the state constitution, it is a county budget that funds the school system, unless you want to do a special school district, which is what we have in for most of Gibson County and
Yeah.
Carroll County.
But I do feel. I mean, I feel like, and I'm not like just trying to blow smoke, or be overly nice, right, to people. But I mean, I think that's a big deal that the city would willingly give some money outside of their budget for city stuff to a entity that they don't have any legal responsibility to.
Well, I guess part
I
of
mean,
that is because uh, when they consolidated 35 years ago, and I assume the TCA codes is when they said counties are going to fund school districts, uh, because before consolidation there was a Jackson school district, and you know about that better than I do.
I was part of it.
Um, yeah, and um, so I could see the county coming back and being like, "Hey, yeah, we're funding this, but we're funding all of this when y'all are not obligated to fund any of it, when for the last few decades y'all been funding a big chunk of it, and most of our county schools are going to be inside your city limits. So, can't you help a brother out?" Uh,
All right, let me ask you this though. Let me ask you
that,
this:
that's a total assumption on my part, by the way.
if this were flipped, all right, and let's say the city had a bunch of city school, but like the dynamics were the same. Okay, is
Hmm.
what I mean. Like all of these demographics, dynamics, everything were the same. The city were funding the majority of the schools. It was their responsibility, right? City council, and this is the
Okay.
same members of both entities: county commission, city council, all that.
Okay.
Situations reversed. Do you think the county commission gives money to the city to fund schools if they didn't legally have to do it? I know it's a hypothetical; it doesn't matter at all. I just don't see that happening.
Based on the fact that Mayor Conger told the city council that he went and asked the county if they would help fund this $6 million road for Great Wolf Lodge, and they said no, and they based it on a TCA code, Tennessee Annotated Code, or Code Annotated, whatever,
Mm.
um, essentially state law. Maybe. I don't know. I'd like to go to that. I know you're not an MCU fan, but I'd like to go to that timeline and see how that would work out.
Because the example you just
But
gave sounds like they wouldn't.
in
I mean,
this timeline, in Earth 616 would not happen.
No, that's what I thought. And again, I did. I don't want this to be that, but yeah, I thought I'd throw that out there. All right, we're at 45 minutes, and it's almost 10 o'clock, and I've got like the Sunday scaries because it's just like I got to go back to work tomorrow, and I don't like going to work. I mean,
Plus, all that weather's coming in too.
yeah, can you hear this thunder right now behind me?
We've heard a couple of claps over my earbuds,
All right, so
but
here's what
it's happening here too.
I'm gonna combine three very important sports stories into one. Like you got to pick the most important one,
Okay.
uh, and tell me why it's the most important one. And you're gonna have like 2 minutes to do this. Okay, so here we go.
All right.
Three big sports stories in the Jackson Post last week. One, Union University. They went somewhere. They went to the national semis. Their girls basketball team. Correct?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh.
Pennsylvania. Okay, all right. So that's a big deal. Okay,
Yep.
went to the semis. JCM boys basketball state tournament, right?
Yep.
And last,
Is that first time ever, Mister Cougar alum?
ooh, I want to say I believe that Mary High went at one point.
But not
Before
JCM.
I don't think JCM boys have ever gone. No,
I
I
think
think it's
Jackson High went a couple of times too.
did they?
So
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
And then I know the girls did because the girls when I
they
was
won state.
when I was a junior in high school, they won state.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ginger
Man,
Bryant, that whole
hey,
crew.
what a freaking team! Like, I don't think I appreciated it. I didn't. I was a 16-year-old kid. I didn't know. I was friends with
Right.
some of those people. But, like, Ginger ended up going to Union and playing, and she went somewhere else before that. I can't remember where. I think Colin Carmichael went to Tennessee Tech or MTSU. I think she went D1.
Hmm.
Leanne Holloway went to Union to play softball, D1. Like I'm trying to think who the other two. Heather Bell, she went and played, I think, college basketball, I believe, somewhere. So like four of the five starters were Division One, or not Division One, but college athletes. Like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, I don't know. That's just like looking back
Yeah.
on it now. Like what a stacked team that '96 team was. All right, sorry.
Definitely.
The third seminal event in Jackson sporting event was the Burt Prentice Memorial TCW Tennessee Championship Wrestling Show. So those are your three choices. Union making a deep run. I don't know how if did they end up winning the championship? Spoiler alert.
They made it to the semifinals, and then the number one or the number two seed knocked them out
Okay.
Wednesday
All
night.
right. So deep run. JCM
Hmm.
got beat in the first round, but going huge deal. So tell me why is the Burt Prentice Memorial Show the most important event in Jackson, Brandon?
Out of those three, it's in the top three. Uh,
Okay.
but I mean, I didn't realize this, but apparently, Bert is buried in Jackson. Did
Had
you
no
know
idea.
that?
No, no. I didn't. I
Uh,
wasn't even sure that Burt Prentice was a real person. Every time we talk about it on the radio, so
yeah.
but now, but I'm learning that
Well,
he
I knew
was.
he was because the one time I had dealings with him actually involved JCM. Back in like 2011, 2012, JCM was having a charity fundraiser event, wrestling, involving Jerry the King Lawler. So I
Mhm.
get a call from Burt Prentice saying, "Hey, I want to get in touch with the sports editor of the Jackson Sun." I was like, "Well, today's your lucky day. You've done it." He's like, "Well, today's your lucky day." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Jerry the King Lawler is willing to have you in his home for an interview." So Kenny Cummings, who's our photographer at the time, now works for Mayor Conger at City Hall. He and I one Thursday morning in October of 2012, I think, we went down to Memphis, hung out with the King. Actually, we woke him up because he forgot about us. Hung out with him, talked some old school wrestling. He told some stories about Jackie Fargo and all these guys on the road and JR on Monday Night Raw and all this other stuff. Uh, it was before it was before, was it a heart attack he had on the air? Yeah, yeah. It's, so obviously we didn't talk about that. I did interview him over the phone after he had that when he was going to appear in Dyersburg after that and actually wrestle. But I mean, he took us and showed us all of his drawings and all of his comic book stuff, his comic book room, and good stuff. Yeah, and but yeah, but all that got set up because of one Burt Prentice. Well, considering that the other two that you mentioned happened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Murfreesboro, then yeah, okay. We got like four uh, companies right here in rural West Tennessee. But KC Gold, he runs a good show. He runs a good show. Christmas they do a Christmas benefit where kids getting free gifts and stuff like that. So yeah, KC and Tennessee Championships is a good one to support. On the kid, yes, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I am bringing the cheapest toy, little $2 squirt gun, and I'm telling that kid to lay down in the center of the ring, and I'm getting on the top turnbuckle. Macho Man's about to fly. So I wouldn't do a bonsai drop or an earthquake thing or a Jimmy Snuka splash because I would kill them. Uh, so yeah, it'd probably be something like a power bomb or maybe the Razor's Edge. Yeah. Wouldn't do the leg drop. That's the stupidest finisher in the history of wrestling. Yeah. Oh yeah, torture rack. Forgot about that. Hmm. Yeah, this week's opinion page. Okay. It wasn't very local. It wasn't. She's getting ready to make her announcement. So, well, he had to make some kind of reason that he needed to be the one to be elected. So, I'm trying to think. When was there an NCAA tournament where there was a team that was like, all right, that team, kind of like about 10 years ago when UConn in women's tournament. Yeah. Well, and I was going to go back to '04 when they had Amika Okafor. That was about the time that I stopped watching college basketball. But ironically, both years they eliminated the University of Alabama. Um, but the yeah, UConn basketball kind of like they can be beat, but everybody's going to be shocked if it happens. Do it next year. It's next year. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. See ya.